Greetings, this is Jeff from Enjoy Life Traveling. Today I wanted to talk about things that can get you in trouble on a cruise ship. Now, some of the things are pretty obvious, but other things may not be. Actually, I thought there were several of them that I don't think that people completely realize how that works out. So I wanted to cover that today. And so just in case, particularly if it's your first time cruising, but even if you've cruised a while, there's going to probably be some things here that maybe you didn't realize. Maybe you did, but here we go. So this first one, and let's just start out with something obvious here. You cannot bring any illegal substances on a cruise ship. Yes, obviously there. What may be less obvious is that you cannot bring anything with THC or CBD, even if it's legal in your state, even if it's legal in the state that you're cruising from. It still is not going to be legal on a cruise ship. Plus, the places that you're going, it may not be legal there, at the very least, to transport it from country to country. So taking that action can really get you not only just kicked off the ship, but if it's caught during the cruise, and yeah, they can do that. Some cruise ships actually have dog sniffing canines out there just trying to make sure that there isn't this problem on their ship. I believe Carnival is one of those ships. So, or cruise lines, I should say. Now, this can go farther than maybe what some people think. Some people will try to either bake their own and bring in, brownies, sneak it in. If they're trying to sneak it in, you're definitely in a bind there. Gummies doesn't count. You can't bring in gummies that have those products in them. Even trace amounts, can't do it. Anything that has that in there, anything, is going to get you in a bind. That includes, you can get this stuff and it's in a drink form and such like that. Doesn't matter what form it's in. If it's got THC in it, if it's got CBD in it, you're about to get kicked off the ship. And they'll do it right in the middle of the cruise. If you're going to, I don't care, they'll just drop you off in Mexico and say, hey, this guy broke the law and you're going to be off the ship. That's not much of a vacation there, so it's not worth it. This includes medically, even if you've got the doctor has prescribed it to you, they got those things online where you can go through there and get that. It still is not allowed. It just doesn't matter. It's not allowed. So if that's something you require, maybe for your pain, some people will use that for pain. Doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to do that. So cruising is really just not for you. Don't try to sneak it in. It's really not worth winding up either flying down to a cruise port, getting caught, and then having to fly back, nor do you want to get dropped off again in another country because you tried to sneak it in and you got caught. That includes, if they see it in your room, if you accidentally leave something out and it's a bag of gummies and the room steward notices, they're going to tell somebody, because again, it's completely illegal, and it's up to them. If they find out that somebody else somehow finds it and it's clear that the room steward didn't report it, he's going to get himself in a bind. So just don't bring those things. So another one that would seem to be pretty obvious is weapons. Now, I wanted to go more broad on that because a lot of people will look at weapons and you go, well, yeah, gun, obviously you can't bring a gun, but maybe not obvious to others, because way back in the day, if it's been a long time since you cruised, they used to do skeet shooting on cruise ships, from the top deck. They don't do that now for obvious reasons. The climate's changed, so you can't do those things. That also includes knives. That will also include like your pepper sprays and such like that in some countries. For example, if you just try to cross the border into Canada in a car and you have pepper spray, they're not going to let you in. So things that might seem like, well, it's just self-defense, can still get you in a bind and get you in trouble. So don't bring those things. When it comes to self-defense, and I think this is a good transition point to something that may be lesser known, and that is, when you think about self-defense and you think, well, what if something happens on the ship? Now, it's rare, but it can happen to where someone gets unruly and maybe you feel threatened. That's I was going to say gray area, but it's really not as gray as I'd like it to be, even, because just defending yourself against someone can get you banned from a cruise line, kicked off the ship. They can't always find out who started it, and even if they do, what kind of actions were taken. So it's kind of that situation to where, if it happens, it's like, well, let's just get rid of everybody and not try to be the referee here. And so, yeah, if you are defending yourself, if you're defending your wife or your girlfriend's honor or vice versa, and you start an argument with somebody, you are very possibly going to be getting kicked off the cruise if it escalates. So if you're hitting, you're done. If you're threatening that level, you can very easily get yourself kicked off the cruise ship. And that's obviously, again, not what it's about. So when you're on a cruise ship and you see some of the things, because I get it, you're around a lot of people, things can aggravate you. And depending on the size of the cruise ship in particular, sometimes you're really close to people, and some people are just rude. Let's face it. Whether it's rude in what they say to people, how they treat people, body odor. There's things that happen that can really bother another person, maybe you. But if you act on that and you start an argument, again, you're kind of setting yourself up, because even if you're trying to make a comment that isn't that big of a deal, the problem is that just because you came in and elevated it to here to let them know that something was wrong, something that's not going to violate any problems, the person that you're saying it to can bring it up to a different level. And what that ends up doing is of course, it can easily spark the person that was trying to very calmly say, as calmly as possible, that there was an issue. So you really have to be careful. I'm not saying to not defend yourself. I'm not saying to not, speak out when the time is right, but just understand that you don't want to just not cruise anymore because of this. So if you're going to take the time to bring it out to somebody, be prepared, hopefully, to scale it back when they escalate, because that's human nature. If one person yells, the next person, if he feels unjust or just, is that person, he's going to elevate it. And even if you elevate it to this level and you still don't think it's that big of a deal, they're going to elevate it again. That's that back and forth that's in true life. I mean, I taught my kids those things. That was important, is that when you are dealing with somebody, you need to understand that how they take it could be way over the top, and you don't want to be on the back end of that. Now, I realize each one of these subjects, I'm probably going into more in depth than to just go blop, 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 blop. But sometimes people don't understand the context and the idea of, at least to me anyway, not defending myself. Some people have a turn the other cheek, and some people have the eye for an eye, and some people have both. But if you get triggered to the eye for an eye, you're going to find yourself in a problem there. So again, just try to keep that top of mind. All right, so another thing that you're going to need to think about is safety. And I realize, again, that safety thing sounds like it's a common sense thing. And yet, from filming this video, I remember seeing one of the cruise news stories out there, to where, actually I saw it on a couple different channels, to where someone was allowing their toddler to stand on a table on their balcony outside, right there at the railing. And this is on the heels of what happened just a few weeks prior, to where on one of the decks, to where a child fell off, I believe it was the Disney cruise, fell off into the water. And that was when the father dove in. If you watch the cruise news, you probably know what I'm talking about there. So putting your kid in an unsafe situation to do something that they could unintentionally or intentionally do, there was adult supervision here, but they were just sitting and allowing it. They didn't, at least from the picture, they weren't jumping up to stop it. I mean, usually if you see that foot start to go up as a parent, you need to get up, not let them already get onto the thing and onto the table. You got to get up and get them off of there, because it's unsafe. So, and that goes beyond kids. I mean, pranks, adults, alcohol maybe get involved, and you feel like sitting on the railing, you're trying to get a quick pic, no one will notice. You can get yourself, particularly if you've got a history of this, if you've done it and you're kind of labeled as, you got to watch this person, Yeah, you could get yourself to where you're not cruising on the ship anymore because they can't afford that. And if someone falls in, first of all, the big safety is to take care of them. And so, with respect to that, if it's just carelessness like that, you are disrupting the rest of the ship when they're not making their port, when they are, circling, trying to find and save the person, which they should do. I'm just saying that it's also not fair for somebody to try to goof around and think that, it's not that big of a deal, or they just don't care, when you're actually going to affect the cruises of other people if something happens. And things happen. If you look up about people falling off a cruise ship, first of all, people don't fall off a cruise ship. Yeah, usually you've been pushed, you jumped, you were screwing around and slipped, because those railings are high enough to where you're not going to just. I suppose if the ship lists, which means that it would suddenly turn. Okay, that did happen. Not somebody. Luckily, no one fell off, but on one of the ships last year, coming overseas, a squall hit, kicked the ship to the side, knocked a bunch of stuff over. They had everybody go to their cabin to make sure that there was a body count, that everybody was there. They got the ship straightened out. Everything was fine. But it could have easily been something worse than that under those circumstances. So, again, just try to keep in perspective what your actions can do that can lead to just something bad happening there. So, one of the things that I see people talk about is, the muster station. They hate doing the muster drills. They hate doing the online part, which is the easiest part. And then, because I'll see people going in and checking, they haven't done it. They've had 45 days to do it and they haven't done it, and so they're keeping the line. But that's another subject. But anyway, when you get on the ship, you have to go to your muster station. And people will delay it and delay it and delay it. And I think some people think that they probably just, there's a certain number that's okay. And so I'm just going to be one of those people. But the law states, maritime law states, that every member has to do this. All of them. So they have to keep going on that intercom every, whatever it is, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, to say, hey, you've got to check in your muster station, because they won't leave until that's done. So they know who's gotten on the ship. Obviously, that process has been done. They know who's supposed to be on the ship. Now that they have to find you, and at the end, if you still haven't done it, they'll call you out by name that you need to do this. Now, that's rare that it gets to that point, but it's also silly that it ever had to get to that point. So make sure, even though you might not want to do it, you do your muster. And the reason I'm putting it in this video is that if you refuse to do it, you're not going. They will escort you right off the ship. That's not an option. So that's why that's in this video. If you're delaying it, you're delaying the inevitable, because if not, they're just going to find you to say, hey, you need to do this. And if you say no, you're off. There's no more to it. So make sure you do your muster, and might as well just get it done in a timely fashion when you first get on board. All right, so next one, tougher subject here. Is sexual misconduct, harassment behavior. Again, that probably seems like a common sense thing, but the part that may not be is that, if you get people out there and they're drinking and there's alcohol involved, I mean, even if there's not, what some people will look to and say that they wanted that might be something that they maybe didn't want. And I say that under the idea of, again, usually it's alcohol, but when people are intoxicated, it can be questionable as to what they actually really want. And even if they seemed like it when they were intoxicated, doesn't mean that they were like that, overly intoxicated, doesn't mean that they were feeling that otherwise. And so that's something that will definitely get you out, kicked off, banned, and in jail. And just FYI, every cruise ship has a jail in it. So if you didn't know that, they all do. They all have a morgue in it too, but hopefully we haven't got to that point. But yeah, if you are doing something, and again, what somebody considers harassment could be just as much as asking a blunt question of if they're interested in something. So everybody's version of that could be different. And in those instances, I kind of see where that gray area falls into what, if someone says, hey, do you want to and the other person thinks that that is, just the worst thing that could, how crude of you, and gets to reporting you, you could start finding yourself in a bind. So, and it doesn't matter, male or female there. So just make sure that you are thinking about these things. And the other thing is the crew members. Some people, it's kind of like, the bartenders, that when you had the female bartenders and guys would talk to them in ways that were not becoming, sometimes a bartender eats that up to get tips and sometimes they don't. Doesn't necessarily make it right, but some people have I don't know. Everybody's different, I guess what I'm trying to say. I don't get it, but it is what it is. But yeah, you don't want to talk to these people in that kind of way, because again, if you're doing that or just harassing them, if it's not sexual, again, if you've got a reputation for it, you can find yourself where they just don't want you on the ship. We saw something similar to that, and it was with the content creators, and they just were doing articles that were not positive, that were showing the things that they didn't like on the cruise ship, and that cruise brand, which was in the Carnival, some of the Carnival brands said that you're not welcome here, and they put it to where you weren't welcome there for 5 years, and that was because they were unhappy and vocalized it. Now, granted, that's a whole different thing there. You talk about the freedom of speech, and then you say, well, the cruise lines are not even flagged in the United States. But I'm just telling you that these are things that you do need to keep in mind, is that these things can be much scarier than what, these things can be taken in a whole different way than maybe what you intended or thought was okay. So yeah, keep that in mind. So another one, to me, it's pretty obvious, and that is theft. If you're stealing stuff, yeah, you're going to get yourself kicked off the ship. They don't want you back on the ship. And that theft, whether it be on the ship from a cruise stuff, if it means stealing another person's stuff, if it means that you've been stealing fraudulently, and bringing it on the ship, some people will have the great idea of that are thieves that are trying to use the credit card scams and then use that to pay for the cruise, and then get on the cruise. They get caught, and then they're banned from the cruise and go into jail. So yeah, don't do those kind of things. They are out there. So as far as your stuff goes, usually you don't have to worry about that too much. The bigger things is going to be sometimes you get someone that wants to try to steal a suitcase that's in the hall. So I know that can be a little nerve-wracking when your stuff isn't there. It's not something you should necessarily worry about, but conceivably it could happen. So you can put the air tags in your luggage, that kind of thing, so you can locate them. That's been done successfully. So something to keep in mind there. Another thing on the list, we're almost done, but another thing on the list is excessive disruptive behavior that particularly disturbs other passengers and their enjoyment of the cruise. So if you're drunk and loud and obnoxious, and you take it, because it's harder when you're drunk. If you're that way normally, it's bad enough. But if you're drunk in particular, it can be so much worse. But yeah, if you're disrupting everybody else's time on the cruise, and someone's saying, "Hey, this is a problem," if it's repetitive, because they note this stuff. If it's repetitive, you're not gonna be allowed back on the ship. They're gonna. There's things that they can do. They don't have to just allow you to keep cruising. You can be, again, there's jails on these places there, but they can also just confine you to the room. So if you're thinking that, man, I'm going to get on the ship and really party it up, if you know that you have some issues with alcohol as far as how you're going to behave, you might want to keep that in mind, because if you like cruising, making that mistake once can really put you to where you're not going to be cruising anymore. And that goes with really everything that we've said. You can't do those things. And then the last thing I'll leave you with is just general fraudulent behavior. If you are committing fraud, you are, and I kind of touched on this a little bit, but if you're using credit cards that aren't yours, or doing anything else, you're not who you say you are, a little hard to get by with. which I think that happened with some passports where some people a couple years ago to where they were fraudulent. Again, the cruise lines don't have time for you on that thing. So those kind of things will, again, get you banned from a cruise line. And hopefully the people that are watching this, that's not you. But again, understand when it comes to, say, an argument or something like that, it can be difficult depending on how hard that's hit you, or if someone is being, belligerent or disruptive. That person's got a certain amount of time to get their stuff together. But if you escalate that, thinking that it's within your rights, and maybe you would do that on land and maybe get away with it, cruise ships aren't going to do that, because you're disrupting the reputation of the thousands of people that are on that ship if it's allowed. So I hope you found this information helpful and informative. I would really appreciate it if you took the time to hit the like button, and obviously subscribe if you haven't already. This will be one of the first videos on the second channel. First channel, Enjoy Life Traveling, was going to be about cruising, but it really took off on some of the casino stuff. And when I looked at the stats, way more people had joined it for the casino stuff that I was putting out than just the cruising, but I still had a good contingency there of people watching for cruising. So to try to keep it to where everybody could find what they wanted and not have stuff linked in there that people weren't interested in, plus the YouTube algorithm sending it to the people that are looking for that content, it made sense to separate it. So chances are, if you're seeing this, there's probably less than 10 people on the channel. I think there's 5 of them as I'm recording it. And the only thing I've put out before this is about going to Alaska, one of the cruise ports there. I put a video out on, and that's probably been 2-3 weeks ago. But you'll be seeing a little bit more of that. I start cruising heavily again. I got 6, basically back-to-back 6 cruises with just one day in between, to where that's going to allow me to do content for 3 different ships, 3 different casino walkthroughs, all those different ports that are involved. This channel will be the most comprehensive channel on Cozumel and probably the Bahamas that you'll ever get to, because those are the ones that are the most traveled to. I'm going to cover them all as I have on the other channel. But yeah, just so you're expecting that kind of stuff. Yeah, there'll be a lot of cruise stuff and not really so much on the gambling at this end. Again, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.